If you're an HVAC technician and a call comes in, Grainger knows that you need a partner that helps you find the right product, fast and hassle-free. And you know that when the first problem of the day is a clanking blower motor, there's no need to break a sweat. With Grainger's easy-to-use website and product details, you're confident you'll soon have everything humming right along. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Happy holidays! Want to give your host a gift? Consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing the show this holiday season. It really helps the show grow. From all of us at Believe, have a Merry Christmas, everyone, and a Happy Holiday.
Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am your host, John Rothman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going. As I like to point out each and every day, it expands our base. This is not the podcast I had hoped to do this morning. This morning's podcast is filled with agony. And let me describe to you my own feelings. The murders committed in Australia, in Sydney, on a beach, on the first night of Hanukkah. It's unbelievable. And the reverberations are tremendous. Not only the tragedy of what happened in Sydney, but the reaction around the world, where in every single community in which there are Jews, security is being beefed up because of fear. Fear. Hatred, we were told, is sacred, and it would seem that the hatred of Jews is real and alive, and we have seen the tragic outcome in Australia. I say this today with some regret, because I have engaged in the last several days with a lot of different people talking about Jew hatred and what it means. But no one could have imagined that that hatred would extend to Sydney, Australia, on a beach where people gathered to celebrate the Festival of Lights, Hanukkah. I must say to you that this is something that affects us all. Now, the good news is that a young Muslim, Ahmed, seized a gun from one of the shooters. And then we are told, in the memorials that are taking place in Australia, Jews, Christians, and Muslims are united together in their feeling. It's a feeling of outrage. It's a feeling of pain. It's a feeling of, well, what can we do to stop this? And that's the key. A father and son undertook this horrific incident. They had high-powered weapons. They used them against the community of Jews gathered innocently, from children to a Holocaust survivor who lost his life because of this senseless act of violence. But the ramifications are real. Hatred of Jews is up. I had an email from a close friend and listener who said, well, John, it's a result of Israel's actions. And I could not help but point out that, of course, this has nothing to do with Israel or its actions. This has to do with singling out a people because of their belief and shooting them down. There is no excuse for what has happened. And we have seen the pervasive Jew hatred extend in community after community around the world, on college campuses, again, throughout the world, including the United States of America. We have seen the upsurge of anti-Semitic incidents and threats, local synagogues having to step up their security, All of these things happening because of Jew hatred. You will note that I'm very careful. I will use the term anti-Semitism on occasion, but the real term is Jew hatred. That's what we have to encounter. And tragically, I know of no way to stem its impact. Please note that in these incidents, including the most recent one in Sydney, it is a father and a son who were licensed gun owners, at least the father was, who committed this unspeakable horror. How would one have prevented that? That's my question. Because you and I know that hate is not rational. That when we witness this kind of hate, we understand that it can happen anywhere, anytime, any place. I received a note from a synagogue here in San Francisco, planning a Hanukkah celebration last night, which they proceeded to have, with the caveat that security has been stepped up. This is not a time when we should have to face this kind of hatred. For many, we thought this was something in the distant past, but it isn't. And the fact that a Holocaust survivor died in this atrocity simply proves the simple fact that the hatred of then is the same hatred now. And the outcome, not directed against any particular individual or political belief, but directed purely and simply against Jews. The hatred which has been felt is clearly sacred. But we shall continue to go forward. Tonight, the second night of Hanukkah, we'll light the lights, we'll sing the songs, and we will give thanks that we have a world in which everyone can see what the horror of hate produces. And let's turn for a moment to what happened at Brown University in Rhode Island. A senseless killing. Somebody had a grudge, it would appear. As of this morning, we don't know who did it. But what we do know is that people are traumatized by the fact that guns are being used to kill people. It is one thing to have a gun for protection. It is another thing, even if I personally do not go hunting, but for people who do hunt, they have that perfect right. But when I heard the President of the United States say we are keeping everyone in our prayers, it is very clear to me that it will take more than prayers to stop the violence that permeates the United States of America. This gun violence must be stopped. And I am reminded that once upon a time, we had a restriction on semi-automatic and automatic weapons, which has since expired, and which Democrats in Congress have continued to advocate for, but Republicans in Congress, a deafening silence. They believe that the right articulated in the Second Amendment should be virtually without restriction. I do not believe that to be true. The time has come for us to recognize, Mr. President and Republicans in the House and Senate, that it will take more than prayers to end gun violence. I always remember after the assassination of Robert Kennedy in 1968 with a handgun, that Eugene B. Block, a San Francisco newspaper editor, said the time has come to do something about handguns. And initially, in the aftermath of the shock of the assassination of Robert Kennedy, many agreed. But, of course, the impact of that moment retreated. And now you can even make a handgun with a 3D computer. There is, my friends, something terribly wrong, terribly amiss, when we can see this kind of violence And it's not new. Remember what happened at Sandy Hook? Remember what happened? Well, you can go down the line. I had a friend in college who was from Austin, Texas, and who was shot way back in the late 60s in that shooting which took place on that campus. He survived. Many did not. And I can well remember when you could buy a rifle by using a coupon from a comic book. Thank God we did away with that. But there is no doubt that it will take more than prayers to eliminate the tragic consequences of gun violence. It is time for action. Not prayers, not words, but action. The model is, of course, Dianne Feinstein's historic legislation, which in the 1990s became law, but which expired after 10 years due to a sunset clause. And of course, well, at least that's a beginning, isn't it? And I want to say a word, if I can, about healthcare. Because, as you know, the clock is ticking for massive increases in healthcare costs. The latest Republican proposal says, and by the way, supported by Donald Trump, let's just give people money. Let them take that money and buy the insurance that they need. I remember when George W. Bush, after the election of 2004, suggested the voluntarization of Social Security. Yes, he said, let's give people back their money, let them invest it themselves. And do you remember what happened when the Great Recession took place? Can you imagine if George Bush's idea had been implemented? The tragedy that would have occurred when the market crashed in 2008? I feel the same way about health insurance. People say, don't you trust people with money? And the answer is, of course, I trust people to invest their money as they see fit. But the whole point of Social Security, the whole point of Medicare, the whole point of our endeavors today to control costs with Obamacare was based on the fact that sometimes individuals cannot control their money in a way which preserves and protects their future. It is vital that before the end of the year, the House and the Senate and the President agree on an extension of Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. If we don't, health care costs for individuals will skyrocket. This, my friends, is something we need to address and understand. And it will take the Republicans acting to make a difference. I want to close this morning on the very sad note of Rob Reiner's murder. He and his wife, killed in their home. We don't know the details yet, but we know that it appears to have been a family member. At least that's the report this morning. I don't know what the circumstances are. I only know that we were deprived with this murder of a great talent. Rob Reiner was an exceptional individual, actor, writer, producer, director. He did it all. And so the media will be preoccupied with the death of a Hollywood legend. I will also follow this story with great care. You never know how individuals or their families are going to react in certain circumstances. But let me be crystal clear on this. Whether it is a shooting in Sydney, whether it is a shooting at Brown University, whether it is the costs of healthcare or the knifing death of Rob Reiner and his wife, individuals must be responsible for their own actions. As we celebrate Hanukkah, we remember that it was the Maccabees who stood up and just said no when Antiochus took over the Holy Land. They fought back for freedom. And in a sense, what we are required to do at this season is to face the light, to be invigorated by the light which leads us to a better path. We cannot account for each and every individual, but we can, in our own way, try to make a difference in the lives of so many. And that is the point of Hanukkah. It is the miracle of light, and the miracle of people fighting back, and the miracle of freedom. I want, on this day, talking about all of these tragedies and political conflicts, to point out that our own individual action, as the action of the Maccabees so many years ago, can work for the good. And that's what we must all do. We must work for the good. Well, have a wonderful second night of Hanukkah, those of you who observe, and those of you who don't observe Hanukkah but who are looking forward to Christmas. Let's remember both holidays embody light. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. You can write a review on Apple Podcasts, drop a comment on YouTube or Spotify, and click any of the links in the show notes to connect with me on social media. Please do share this episode with a friend or colleague, and you will note that this show has been getting so much positive attention that we are now bringing advertising support on as well. This will help us to create more opportunities. Please spread the word about this podcast. And of course, to Gogo Zoger, the wonderful producer of this program. Gogo, thank you so much for everything you do. To you and your family, I want to extend a happy Hanukkah. And to all of you listening wherever you may be in the world, let's hope that with this celebration of Hanukkah, that there will be a brighter light in the world. I am John Rothman. I will be back tomorrow right here with another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. See you then.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening. Happy holidays! Want to give your host a gift? Consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing the show this holiday season. It really helps the show grow. From all of us at Believe, have a Merry Christmas, everyone, and a Happy Holiday.